Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Dutip. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. This is CBS News 24/7. Flames ripped through several states and north of the border, why officials say a massive fire in Northern California was no act of nature. Plus, a meeting at Mar-a-Lago. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meets with former President Donald Trump after his fiery speech to Congress, and several meetings at the White House. And busted on American soil. We're getting new details about the arrest of 2 Mexican cartel leaders, including the son of notorious drug lord El Chapo. But we begin this morning with the massive escalation of wildfires in the West. This is the Park Fire, one of the multiple fires raging in Northern California. It was a small brush fire less than 48 hours ago. 160,000 acres have burned so far, and the blaze is only 3% contained. And now we're learning more about the cause. Jonathan Vigliotti is joining us now to talk more about this. He is in the thick of it all in Northern California. Jonathan, we saw your live shot early this morning. It does appear that the blaze has somewhat settled down, but it is still a very dangerous situation.
Settle down, Vlad, in this area. We are here on the eastern flank of this fire. We've been surveying the damage this morning. As you referenced earlier on CBS Mornings, we watched and you saw us as the flames ripped through this area. Now this morning, you've got this thick, acrid blanket of smoke. As you mentioned, the fire exploding overnight, 164,000 acres, 3 times the size of San Francisco. We're talking fire tornadoes, flames reaching hundreds of feet into the sky. This morning, 1,100 firefighters are here on scene battling these flames, but they've got their work cut out for them. As you can see behind me, this is rugged terrain. Most of the flames, we're told, are pushed even deeper in. Still, communities are threatened this morning. More than a dozen homes have been destroyed, and for that reason, thousands of people are still under a mandatory evacuation notice. We're also learning a little bit more about what could have caused this fire. Officials saying they have arrested a man, 42 years old, from Chico. Investigators looking into possible arson, saying he lit his car on fire, then pushed it down into a ravine, sparking this explosion, which led to what we're dealing with this morning. The investigation into that exact motive continues, along with the fear of this fire continuing to explode. There is a red flag warning still in effect through later this evening, Vlad.
Jonathan, you're also near the scene of the devastating 2018 fire in Paradise, California. How has the response to this fire changed at all? Is there any change in tactics in battling it?
And, you know, just for some perspective, we're about 11 miles away from Paradise, and Paradise is currently threatened by these flames. Residents there, and I've spoken with several of them, have been placed on warning, on notice to possibly evacuate if the flames get closer. Lessons have been learned. They always haven't been heeded. One of those critical lessons comes from notification. It was a big failure in 2018. It led to a mass evacuation, which partly is responsible for the 85 deaths. With this fire, notifications went out hours before the flames reached, giving a lot of people a lot of time to evacuate safely, Vlad.
All right, Jonathan Vigliotti, stay safe, my friend. Thank you. Meanwhile, there's another fire that's torn through a Canadian resort town, and it is showing no signs of letting up. Carter Evans is near the resort town of Jasper, which is in Alberta, with that part of the story.
Well, good morning. You can see that roadblock behind me there. This is about as close as we can get to the community of Jasper right now after flames tore through the beloved Canadian National Park. We're now getting a first look at some of the devastating images showing what's left, and authorities believe 30 to 50% of the structures in the town were either damaged or destroyed. Fortunately, about 20,000 visitors and 5,000 residents were able to evacuate in time, and there are no reported deaths. Now, at one point, the toxic smoke from burning structures was so thick that wildland firefighters who didn't have a breathing apparatus were also evacuated from the area. But firefighters did manage to save the hospital, the schools, and many homes in town. Now, this is one of more than, and get this, 900 wildfires burning in Canada right now. But this one hits particularly hard as Jasper is considered the jewel of the national park system. A Canadian colleague told me it's the equivalent of Yosemite or Yellowstone National Park. And Alberta's premier fought back tears while promising to rebuild even stronger than before.
To those in Alberta and around the world who have experienced the magic of Jasper, The magic is not lost, and it never will be.
Now, it's chilly here. I'm wearing layers. At night, it gets down into the 40s. And yesterday, it was raining. And certainly all of that is good news for firefighters. They say it's going to keep the fire activity low for the next couple of days. That's great news. But the weather was not enough to extinguish the fire. Vlad.
All right, Carter, thank you very much. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Tammy Sousa with the first look at the national forecast. Hey, Tammy.
Oh, hello, Vlad. It is not going to be any relief that they get out west. It is going to continue with that heat and with the dry conditions. And now we'll even add a few thunderstorms to all of that. Let's go ahead and take a look at what is going on with the cloud cover out to the west. And you can see the eastern seaboard has cloud cover, but out to the west, not a whole lot. So they are dealing with that searing heat. You can see a little bit of cloud cover across the Gulf Coast, though. We'll get to that in just a moment because that is a little bit of a problem that they are dealing with. Now, the part of the country we are talking about is going to be out west. We'll start there because that's where we have the wildfires and that's where we have all of that extreme heat. Let's look at some of those numbers because they are pretty impressive. We're talking about triple digits right now from the southwest all the way up into the San Joaquin Valley and all the way up toward Chico and toward that Park Fire. So that is going to be a rough day that people are looking at out there. Another place that we have the heat beginning to build, the northern plains. Look at this. We're dealing with temperatures that are going to be in the triple digits, and that extends well down into the southern plains where the heat is once again beginning to build. Now, as far as temperature relief, not looking at it. In the next 8 to 14 days, that heat will continue to pound all of those states out west where the wildfires are, where the drought is, and we're going to add a flash flood risk to parts of the area. So where you see that heat building from the plains all the way down into the southwest, we're going to be seeing the monsoonal flow. We're going to be seeing the chance of thunderstorms there, which is not a good thing because that lightning could ignite more fires. We do have that flood risk continuing along the Gulf Coast from Houston all the way over to Florida, the panhandle of Florida, and up the southeastern coast. So we're going to see that moisture continuing to pump in there, and that's where we have that flood risk. Could see as much as another 3 to 4 inches of rain in some places. In far southern Texas, look at Rockport, 6.8 inches of rain expected to fall there. Now, when I come back in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about some of the smoke and how it's going to affect people. We'll talk a little bit more about the rainfall and if they're going to get any relief here. And we will talk about the drought conditions out there. Vlad, I'm going to send it back over to you.
All right, Tammy, looking forward to that. Thank you so much. In just about an hour, former President Donald Trump will host Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. This is the first face-to-face meeting between the two in nearly 4 years. CBS News campaign reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman joins me now for more on this. So, Katrina, what are you hearing is what we can expect from this meeting?
Hi, Vlad. So this meeting is set to start in about an hour. It's a closed-door meeting, but what we can expect is for this to be a renewal of ties between Trump and Netanyahu and potentially some repairing after the rift that happened when Netanyahu recognized Joe Biden as the rightful winner of the 2020 election. Trump viewed that as a betrayal, but during his presidency, they had always had a very strong relationship. Trump had a pro-Israel stance and enacted a number of policies that were in line with Netanyahu's views. He moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. He pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, and he helped to broker the Abraham Accords. Netanyahu specifically requested this meeting with Trump, and he views Republican support as a key pillar of Israel's security. So he wants to make sure today that that support remains robust if Trump becomes our next president.
And so what's interesting, Katrina, to me is that he is not the president of the United States. There's only one commander in chief. And so do we expect that other world leaders will make visits to Mar-a-Lago like this one?
This is a great question, Vlad, and I find it interesting as well because it's not normal for leaders to come and meet a presidential candidate. But Trump has now met with Zelensky. He's meeting with Netanyahu here. And I think it indicates that, for one, these leaders see that Trump is doing well in the polls. And it also supports what Trump is trying to say about what he could do if he becomes president again. He's saying that he can broker peace in the Middle East. He says that he could end the war between Russia and Ukraine. And in some ways, these visits from world leaders are validating that.
All right, Katrina Kaufman for us outside of Mar-a-Lago. Katrina, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Former President Barack Obama has officially endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee. He and former First Lady Michelle Obama called Harris to congratulate her and offer to help support her campaign. Listen.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
In a statement, the former president says Vice President Harris has the vision, the character, and the strength that this critical moment demands. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins me now to talk about this. Ed, how significant is this endorsement for Harris, and how do you expect the former president to be involved in the campaign moving forward?
Well, Vlad, do you ever feel like you're like Captain Picard there in the studio with us on the big wall, like we're the Klingons here on set?
Very much so.
It's got a very Trekkie vibe here. A few viewers have commented on this.
It's perfect for me.
Look, this is a very big deal, but a very expected endorsement. This one was no surprise. The issue was just the timing. And this had very Obama-esque qualities to it. The sort of when is it coming? How is it coming? It comes very early on a Friday morning in a glossy produced video. Look, what will this lead to? It probably will lead to a few million more dollars in donations today. We're likely going to see these two on the trail with her at some point soon. As you hear in the video, they allude to the fact that they're going to have some fun with this, which means, yes, they'll probably be out there for her. Not just the former president, but also Michelle Obama, which may actually end up being a bigger draw and more notable because the First Lady has spent so much time away from partisan politics since living here at the White House. But it is, in essence, the last big piece of the Harris coalition puzzle now that he is involved and on board with all this. There had been some sensitivities, given that we know he and those close to him were among those trying to nudge the current president out of the race, and that'll lead to some awkward times between the Obamas and the Bidens, but for now, at least, he's on board with Harris.
All right. Let me ask you another question, Ed, about Vice President Harris's meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, separate from President Biden yesterday. Yep. I think it's sort of interesting, and I was talking to one of our Washington producers, Kate Farrell, who you know very well, obviously, and we were sort of batting this about and saying to ourselves that it is interesting that there might actually be sort of two tracks happening here. While the President of the United States continues to be the commander-in-chief, he will give wide berth to the Vice President to sort of carve out her own lane. Is that how you read it?
Well, a few things. The White House made very clear before the meeting, and there was no disputing this from Harris's team, that she has been, in essence, in lockstep with the current president throughout and involved in virtually all key meetings with Netanyahu, either from here or in some other way, over the course of the war since last October. What was most notable, however, yesterday was sort of the stagecraft of this, that both of them had separate meetings with Netanyahu. Only the vice president spoke afterward or issued some kind of statement about it. And that appeared to be designed to let her sort of own the day and allow the public and the world, really, to see her on the world stage and hear her comment on the substance of a real foreign policy challenge for the United States. What she ultimately said wasn't that different than what President Biden might have said if perhaps there was just a little more emphasis on the plight of those in Gaza, which she's always been a little more out front on than the president, at least in the beginning. But it really was an interesting moment for the president to sort of step back and say, no, we'll let her have this one because she needs it politically, and it's also a good excuse for the rest of the world to sort of see what she's like dealing with a world leader. But to the point about dealing with the current president, his vice president, who may be the future president, the former president who has his own following, who many still believe is the president and might be the future president, it's getting a little confusing and crowded around here as we try to track the dual statements and beliefs of these people and how they differ and how that can really confuse the public and the world. We also know, for example, with what Netanyahu is doing today, that he was here yesterday meeting with the current, potentially future president. Today he's in Florida talking to the former and potentially future president. Other world leaders, should they find themselves in the United States in the coming weeks, like when the United Nations holds its meetings in September, may try to pull off similar meetings because they want to get a sense of who's in charge, who might be in charge, and what that would mean for their relationship with the United States going forward.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, we've never sort of been here, Ed, in this situation. And so the other thing that we don't have enough time to talk about it, but I'll get your thoughts on it throughout this campaign, is how Vice President Harris is deploying all that money that she raised. Because as you know, these candidacies are defined in their first couple of days, and we're already a few days into it. And that ad spending on the Trump side is already seeking to define her. So really, really interesting stuff to talk about.
Yes. Bottom line, that money's going to be spent on the airwaves and on the airlines. There's going to be a lot of advertising,
a lot of travel.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Ed O'Keefe for us at the White House, my brother. Thank you very, very much. I'll see you soon.
Live long and prosper, Vlad.
Live long and prosper. Yeah, there we go. All right. Let's talk about this. A major coordinated attack of sabotage paralyzed train service in France just hours before the Olympics opening ceremony. What we know about the fires that were set on several rail lines and who may be behind the brazen attack. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. The opening ceremony of the Olympics has already been marred by controversy. Police in France are investigating what appears to be a coordinated arson attack on the country's rail system. CBS News Saturday morning co-host and CBS News and sports correspondent Dana Jacobson is in Paris with the latest on the investigation. So Dana, what happened? What do we know about what French police and authorities are saying?
Vlad, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want to sort of update the delay situation. A lot of people have wondered what is going on with, there were trains even that had athletes on them. 4 trains with athletes were traveling to Paris this morning. 2 of those were affected. 1 was canceled outright. The other one delayed. There's hope that they may be able to get here. We haven't been able to determine yet whether that is happening. But the good news is there is a little bit more movement. There are delays still on the lines and cancellations. One of the lines had some repairs. That is the Eastern line right now. So more of those trains are running. 1 in 3 trains are running on the Atlantique line. That's like their Western line. And that one had the most delays and cancellations earlier, the most disrupted by this incident. So a little bit of good news as they continue to try to repair these lines. About 800,000 people affected by this, not just the athletes, people going on vacation, people trying to get to Paris, possibly for those opening ceremonies. As for what happened, it was around 4 a.m. local time. Arson on those tracks, and this was a similar incident, if not even a copycat incident, to something that happened back in January of 2023. It was an attack by a far-left group. They bundled some cables, put fuel on them, and lit them on fire. And the transportation minister did say that this was the same type of attack. It has such a large impact because within those cable bundles are dozens of other cables affecting these lines. A criminal investigation has been launched, not a terror investigation, which may give us some idea of where this is headed. But as of right now, they are still trying to determine who was behind this.
And as you know, Dana, we're just hours away from the opening ceremony. What can we expect in terms of some of the highlights that you're hearing? And what is security like around the event? My guess, of course, is that it's at a level we probably have never seen before. But I'm just more interested in the fireworks and the spectacle.
Well, and that's what people want you to be concerned with, and that's why security is so tight on this. Hopefully, most of the athletes that were supposed to be here will get here because it's a spectacle like we've never seen. Normally, you know, Vlad, it's in a stadium. This is along the River Seine. It's about a 4-mile stretch. The athletes for that Parade of Nations will travel on boats down the Seine. It's our first Olympic Games where we have seen equal participation by male and female athletes. So they have 2 flag bearers for each country, male and female. We've got LeBron James and Coco Gauff. We know that they will end near the Eiffel Tower, as you can see behind me here, to light the Olympic cauldron. And we're hearing reports, I know you know this, Vlad, that Lady Gaga and Celine Dion will possibly be performing a duo of La Vie en Rose. And it's those type of things that people, you know, they want them to focus on. We're worried about rain also, as just Mother Nature never seems to cooperate with things like this. We had rain earlier, more is expected later, but you've seen ceremonies before. People are so excited to kick off an event like this. It won't matter what the weather is.
100%. Dana Jacobson in the City of Lights for us this morning. Dana, thank you so much. Great reporting. Okay, this morning, Secret Service and members of the Chicago Police are providing Chicago residents with some safety information ahead of the Democratic National Convention. Asal Razea with our CBS News station in Chicago has a preview of their canvassing efforts.
With the DNC less than a month away now, we're getting more insight as to exactly what people can expect in this area, as there have been some concerns about the tight security and all the large crowds that the convention will draw in. We know that the Secret Service and Chicago police are canvassing the area this morning, giving neighbors an idea of what to expect as far as safety protocols, transportation, and road closures. In a big safety briefing just yesterday, we learned car and foot traffic will be extremely limited, both here around the United Center and McCormick Place. I'm reporting in Chicago, Asal Razai, CBS News.
A former PepsiCo janitor says he invented Flamin' Hot Cheetos, but claims PepsiCo defamed him by denying his story. Details of the fiery lawsuit coming up next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Strong indications this morning that America's inflation crisis may be nearing an end. The Federal Reserve Preferred Inflation Index showed that prices slightly scroll that back. Prices what? Prices increased slightly by just 0.1% last month. Experts say this could set the stage for the Fed to begin cutting interest rates this fall. The Dow is up 637 points on the news. The Defense Department is admitted to spreading propaganda in the Philippines. Government documents obtained by Reuters say that the U.S. launched a secret psychological operation to discredit China's COVID vaccine in 2020 and 2021. The Defense Department has since admitted the anti-vax campaign was, quote, misaligned. And a spicy dispute may soon be settled in court. The issue, who invented Flamin' Hot Cheetos? Former PepsiCo janitor Richard Montañez is suing the company. He claims in 1991 he took a batch of unflavored Cheetos home, dusted them with chili powder, and then later pitched the spicy snack to PepsiCo's CEO. According to the lawsuit, the CEO then tapped Montañez to help develop and promote Flamin' Hot Cheetos, but later turned on him, shut him out of testing, and claimed the spicy snacks were already in the works. Montañez is seeking damages for discrimination, fraud, and defamation. PepsiCo has not yet given a comment on the lawsuit. Okay, bringing you back now to our top story. Former President Donald Trump will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago this morning. Yesterday, Netanyahu met with President Biden and likely Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. Let's bring back CBS News campaign reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman to talk about more of this. Let's talk about the differing views of the war in Gaza between the Biden administration and Donald Trump. What are you hearing, or what can you explain to our audience about what may come out of this meeting in terms of how President Trump will be thinking about prosecuting the war should he be reelected to the office?
Trump has been emphasizing that he wants this war ended quickly. He thinks that it is a PR disaster for Israel, and he's really been focusing on the optics of this, but hasn't presented a clear plan on what he thinks the resolution should be. But from what he's been saying, I think we can anticipate that he is going to be pressuring Netanyahu to try to find a resolution here and put an end to this war. Now, the way that he differs from Harris is that while she expresses her strong support for Israel to defend itself and for the Biden administration's proposal that there should be a ceasefire, a deal to release the hostages, and a two-state solution, she also expresses empathy for the plight of the Palestinian people. This is something that she even raised in her meeting with Netanyahu. She recognizes that there is a humanitarian toll being taken there that also has to be dealt with.
All right, Katrina Kaufman for us at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you, Katrina. Appreciate it. As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues his visit here in the U.S., the war in Gaza rages on, as you just heard Katrina explaining. Israel's military says it has killed around 100 militants in Gaza's southern city of Khan Yunis since starting its new operation there. Our Deborah Pata has more.
Let's get the deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. The words of Vice President Kamala Harris ramping up the pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. There are still over 100 hostages in Gaza, 39 of whom have been confirmed dead by the Israel Defense Force. A ceasefire would also end nearly 10 months of misery for Palestinians there. Harris said she would not stay silent in the face of their suffering, saying we cannot look away from images of dead children and desperate people fleeing for safety in Gaza. Netanyahu's defiant speech to Congress was met with disbelief in Gaza, one resident saying she was shocked because they were expecting a truce. The day after his address, in which he said Israel had taken unprecedented steps to protect civilians, there were more funerals in Gaza, this one after a strike hit a family sheltering in a tent in Khan Yunis. One more child orphaned, saying farewell to her mother. Right-wingers in Netanyahu's ruling coalition government have dismissed Vice President Harris's remarks on the suffering of Palestinians, saying, Vlad, there will be no truce, madam.
All right, Deborah Patter reporting for us. Deborah, thank you. Two leaders of a powerful Mexican drug cartel are in FBI custody after being arrested in El Paso, Texas. Ismael El Mayo Zambada, a longtime leader of the Sinaloa cartel, and Joaquin Guzman Lopez, the son of drug lord El Chapo, are now facing multiple drug trafficking-related charges. CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez joins us now from Dallas to talk more about this. So Manny, tell us how this bust went down.
Yeah, these are really significant arrests that have happened because these were such high-profile targets for authorities here in the United States. They've been trying to get these arrests for quite some time. Also significant because the Sinaloa cartel is one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Mexico, and Zambada is a co-founder, was said to be the current leader, and El Chapo's son, also a high-profile figure within the cartel. We're still waiting to hear the exact details about how these arrests went down. We do know that they happened without incident at a small airport outside of El Paso. So again, why is this significant? Well, the men have been said to be leading an organization that has trafficked all kinds of drugs into the United States and Europe, specifically fentanyl, which, as you know, has created a crisis in this country with tens of thousands of Americans dying from fentanyl poisoning every year.
And so what does this new arrest, Manny, mean for the future of the cartel? We often hear that these cartels are not as powerful as they were in their heyday, but it doesn't really appear to be the case.
Well, a few things. There could now be factions within the cartel that will try to take over. What does that create? It creates a lot of violence in Mexico, and we've seen that happen time after time. But you have to imagine that if there is still a market for illegal drugs in the United States and Europe, if people here are still buying the drugs, well, that creates the market that they have been feeding all this time, and likely they have somebody else ready to take over.
All right, Manny Bojorquez reporting for us on this really significant news. Manny, thank you. A massive wildfire in Canada is moving quickly as it ravages a picturesque resort town. Global News reporter Jamie Dahl is near the town of Jasper with the very latest.
It's been just over 24 hours now since that massive wall of flames measuring 100 meters tall blew into the town site of Jasper. And still tonight, firefighters from across Alberta are on the front lines trying to prevent further damage there. Now, they are getting some help from Mother Nature. The rain is expected to continue through the night, but it has been a harrowing day for so many as we learn a little more about the damage done to one of Canada's crown jewels. Homes and hotels are gone. Some buildings at the iconic Jasper Park Lodge have been destroyed, but we're told the main lodge is still standing. The Premier of Alberta says between 30 to 50% of the community has been touched by flames, but many residents still have no idea if their homes are on the list. And Parks Canada says it's too early to list all the damages. Many first responders are now staying next door in Hinton. The mayor of that community says the reality is just starting to sink in.
You see it in the first responders, I see it in our staff here, I see it in the community as I walk around and talk to people in the community. Everyone has connection to Jasper. Everyone loves the area. Everyone loves somebody from Jasper. It's a tragedy and it's weighing on the community, absolutely. We are just starting with the stages of grief and we're going to go through all those stages as a community, I'm sure.
25,000 people were evacuated Monday night, tourists, temporary workers, and of course, longtime residents uncertain about what they'll be coming home to. And while there has been a lot of emotion, everyone is just so grateful they made it out safely in all of this. Heartfelt condolences are now pouring in from people around the world, wondering how they can help, people who have been touched by this magical place, a place that's now cut off from everyone, smoldering, that wildfire still burning out of control. Jamie Dahl, Global News, near Hinton, Alberta.
Well, let's bring back CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Tammy Sousa with another look at the national forecast. That was just a heartbreaking report there, Tammy.
It is very heartbreaking. We've got those fires. We've got the fires in Northern California, and we have smoke all over the western United States. I'm going to start first. I'm going to show you what's going on with the temperatures that are out there, because if you're near the coastline anywhere, you're going to be experiencing some relief. But as you head out to the west, you're going to be looking at these triple-digit temperatures continuing, which is not going to bring any relief. You know what? If we put on the clouds, you can actually see the real picture as to what is going on. You can see that for the most part, we're not dealing with a whole lot of anything going on across the western part of the United States other than the smoke from those wildfires. So things are pretty clear, and that's the way it's going to stay, except we may see some thunderstorms out there. Let's go ahead and take a look at that wildfire smoke, because that's something that I really want to kind of point out. We're not getting a lot of it from Canada right now. What we are getting is wildfire smoke. Watch what happens out of Northern California, and you can see that as it streams off to the north and the east. So a lot of that smoke that's covering the western part of the United States is coming from the Northern California fires. We're getting a little bit of smoke in from Canada, and you can see that dropping into the Great Lakes. So far, not a lot being affected by the Jasper fire that is up there. Now, dry thunderstorms, not our friend. This is where we are looking at the dry conditions that could actually spawn more fires. And add to that the fact that we are going to get thunderstorms. Now, a flash flood risk where you see the green here across the Rockies and into parts of the plains, and we are going to see those thunderstorms firing up. The problem is a lot of these fires get lit by that lightning, so that is not a good thing. You're thinking, oh, that rain will put it out. It's really not a good thing. The other place we're watching for a flood risk is along the Gulf Coast and right on up into the southeast along the Carolina coastline, and that's because we just have this rain that is training again and again. You can see it moving up the coastline and especially across Texas. No relief for anybody in Texas out there. So we're continuing to see the flooding rains, the heavy rain that is going to move through that region, and it is not letting up. And then again, we're going to get that rain that's going to be moving through the Rockies, also into parts of the plains and lighting off lightning. So we're hoping that that doesn't happen, because it could lead to a lot more in the way of wildfires. Vlad, I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, Tammy, thank you so much. And we want to go back to the wildfire burning that Tammy was just referencing, which is happening in California. Butte County has declared an emergency in response to the raging park fire near Chico. It's prompted a slew of evacuations in surrounding areas. Authorities say the fire has burned more than 164,000 acres, some 256 square miles, while containment is still only at 3%. Now, the fire is believed to be the result of suspected arson and was ignited around 3 p.m. on Wednesday. Police say a 42-year-old man from Chico has been taken into custody. Joining me now is CBS News Sacramento reporter Rachel Wolf. She is on the ground there. Rachel, we spoke yesterday. Tell us what you've learned in the subsequent hours this morning.
Well, a couple of things stand out. Number one, you mentioned the arrest of a suspect. This is unheard of in 24 hours to bring somebody into custody. And you know why that happened? Is there was a woman who saw the whole thing unfold and she turned it over to police. And this is a man who's a convicted felon who's known to law enforcement in the area, who was arrested for, I believe it was DUI in 2020, right in that same area of Alligator Hole. So the reason why I bring up that is that quick thinking, that quick reaction. People wanted some accountability for this fire that has exploded now. It is quadrupled in size. We are right along Big Chico Creek, which is a canyon here. At the bottom, there's this creek that leads to Alligator Hole, where all of this happened. And we also know that that the fire started there. Then it went a little bit around and went up by the airport in Cohasset. And then it came back because of the winds into this area. And last night it was crossing over Highway 32 where we are now. So this is Highway 32, a number of different CAL FIRE entities stationed along Highway 32 watching this fire. And I was listening right as you were coming to me because I heard this which is the sound of trees going up. It's a very distinct sound, and you got to be careful when that happens because it could be a tree basically exploding if it's dry enough behind you. These are all important things to remember whenever you're covering fires because you have to keep safe out here. But again, we are right about 12 miles north of Chico, just to give you a little bit of perspective for those folks that may be watching this. And we're very close to the town of Paradise, which, oh my goodness, they have been through so much when they had their entire town burned down in 2018.
Simply heartbreaking. Rachel Wolf on the ground for us in Chico. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. All right. California Governor Gavin Newsom is directing state officials to begin removing all homeless encampments across the state. But in the state with the largest homeless population, what happens next? And where do all those people go? We're going to get some answers from our CBS News Los Angeles reporter. That's coming up next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. We want to take you now to Paris, where world leaders are gathering for an Olympic reception hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron. You could see the president there of the United States, who I think he should be almost, thought we would see him there. Nope. Okay, so we see President Macron, and there is Jill Biden in what looks like a lilac dress, greeting the French president. Along with his wife. So this is, of course, the first night of the Olympics. The opening ceremonies are just a couple of hours away. We expect this will be something really very, very cool that we've never seen before. As you heard earlier from our Dana Jacobson, the parade of athletes will take place on the River Seine, which is something I'm really looking forward to seeing. We're going to keep an eye on movements in Paris, as you see First Lady Jill Biden there greeting the Macrons, and bring you any exciting news as warranted. There they are, turning for the camera for a little photo opportunity. Gotta love the photo opportunity in Paris. At the Elysee, Paris. All right, we're gonna keep an eye there on the Elysee and bring you any news that comes out of this. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed the new executive order to start removing homeless encampments on state land, and the policy went into effect yesterday after a ruling by the Supreme Court. CBS News Los Angeles reporter Kara Finstrom joins us now. Kara, once removed, I mean, the question for a lot of people is, where are these individuals supposed to go? Newsom is seen as a liberal governor, but this seems to be more of a conservative move. Explain to us how it's going to work.
So a lot of the people that typically support the governor, a lot of the local leaders are not doing so this time. He is getting some support, though, and essentially what this directive does, right behind us here, this is LA City Hall, and you can see some of the encampments out here, is it encourages local leaders to start what he says humanely removing encampments from spaces like this one. He's asking them to do it with urgency and prioritizing the areas that are the biggest threats to health and safety. As you mentioned, this is a sweeping response to last month's Supreme Court decision, which cleared the way for local leaders to remove these encampments without offering shelters. The governor was among those who called on justices to act, and his directive, of course, also comes shortly before elections for control of the White House and for Congress. And so because of that, there are some possible political implications here, and many local leaders who don't support that are underlining, or don't support this directive, are underlining that. You asked about the how this will be done. Well, in it, he does, encourage folks to do this, say it can be done without offering shelter, but he's asking folks who do remove some of these encampments, clear them away, to direct the people who have been living in them to public providers, to service providers who can hopefully get them into some type of housing. So the real impacts of this not clear. He can do so immediately on state properties, and that is expected to start right away. But really, with local leaders, it's more of guidance. Because he does have a lot of dollars to put behind some of these efforts, local leaders may feel compelled to listen, but they don't have to.
All right, Kara, thank you so much. Really interesting reporting. Appreciate it. All right, in just a few minutes, former President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are set to meet face-to-face for the first time in years. We'll monitor their meeting and have continuing coverage ahead. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. It is the end of another long week, and for some remote workers, the same scenery could get a little boring. Nicole Nielsen with CBS News Texas takes a look at one unique option hitting a home run with some employees.
Hey, take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
Work from the ballpark. It's a new initiative here by Globe Life Field and Comerica Bank, meant to give remote workers a change of scenery during day games.
If they don't win, it's a shame.
So I suited up myself and headed inside to find people taking advantage of the new deal.
Working from home, I'm used to a lot of distractions from dogs and kids and husbands. So it's good. It's a good change of space. Yeah, good change of pace.
Angela Hawkins is a mechanical engineer who spent the entire game typing away.
It's nice, and usually if my husband's home, he comes with our son, and I sit at home. So it is just nice to be with them, or they're down there, but at least be in the vicinity, and yeah.
It's all located in the Comerica backyard section in the outfield. Tickets are just $15, and for that, we'd say the views are unbeatable.
The biggest benefit is that you get out of the monotony of everyday work.
The Texas Rangers say it's not only a great opportunity for families to have extra time to spend together, but for Rangers fans looking to network, proving that adding in a hot dog and some baseball to your workday may not make it so bad after all.
So you come here, you get your job done, but in between sending emails and making phone calls, you get to enjoy a home run here, a run scored there, and really just provide some excitement for your day.
'Cause it's 1, 2.
In Arlington, Nicole Nielsen, CBS News, Texas.
It is the Piano Man serenading New Yorkers at New York's Madison Square Garden for the 150th time. The landmark performance was also the last show of his 10-year residency at the world's most famous arena. Comedian Jimmy Fallon and Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose joined Billy on stage during the show. Now, to be clear, he's not retiring. He has several concerts scheduled in the next couple of months around the world, including in England, St. Louis, and in Las Vegas. But this is just the last time we're going to see him at the Garden in this residency. All right, let's bring back CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Tammy Souza with the last look at the national forecast.
Okay.
Tammy.
Well, hey, you know what, Vlad? We're talking about those fires out west, and we're talking about the heat out west, and that is the big story. Let's start off with a look basically at our planet, and let's focus on the western United States, where you don't see a whole lot of anything going on. It's pretty quiet out there, and there is a reason for that. We have that dry, sinking air out there, and that is causing a lot of problems, at least trying to fight the fires. Let's talk about those temperatures, because they'll be in the triple digits once again, and we are looking at things like 111 in Phoenix, all the way up to Redding, 104. And that's the problem. When you get up there toward Redding, that's where we have that wildfire potential. Now, here we are. Here is Chico. I worked in Chico early on in my career, so I know that Butte County is surrounded by a lot of dry area, and then you head right on up into the foothills of the Sierra. So we're watching this fire in Chico, the Park Fire, and look at the smoke from that. It is going to expand across the northern tier of states, and then as the winds shift, it's going to head back toward the Bay Area. So that's something that is going to be watched over the next couple of days. The fire potential, Vlad, that is not going to stop. You can see all these areas in pink, including the northern San Joaquin Valley, all with extreme fire dangers. Back over to you.
All right, Tammy, thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us, folks. An encore presentation of CBS Mornings is coming up next. This is CBS News 24/7.